Welcome to Wine Soundtrack Australia. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world.
In 30 ounces, discover their stories, personalities and passions.
Hello listeners and friends of Wine Soundtrack. My name is Priscilla Hennicum. I'm here with some woman very important in the wine business. Mary Hermiter, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to welcome you to McLaren Vale.
So tell us, where exactly are you located in McLaren Vale?
Okay, so McLaren Vale is 40 minutes south of the city of Adelaide and is one of the most beautiful regions because it's flanked by the coast on one side and the Adelaide Hills on the other side. So I think of it as being possibly one of the best and most consistent regions in the world for grape growing. So it's close to the city, it's beautiful, and we are right in the heart of it here.
And because you're close to the ocean, you have a different microclimates here, right? So you can grow different grapes.
Yeah, it's actually a very important piece of geography for how the grapes grow. You're quite right. What it does is that it means that the temperature in the valley is really regulated. So a couple of things that are beautiful for grape growing is that the Southern Ocean, which blows in the middle of harvest, gives the grapes a beautiful chance to just cool off and relax in the afternoon. It can even be a really warm day, and by about sort of 2 p.m. you can just feel this freshness blow in from the Southern Ocean. So that's lovely for prolonging harvest. And then the other thing that the maritime climate does is it means that we stay free of frosts and humidity. So that's very important for grape growing because it means that we don't get disease and we don't get wipeouts where just all of the fruit gets taken by the frost. So it's a very beautiful sort of environment for grape growing. And those lovely hills up there, also the cool air comes down in the evening off the hills. And so this is also nice for grapes. Grapes like it here.
We had the perfect spot. So how many hectares do you have here, Mary?
We've got 3 different vineyards, all in the McLaren Vale region, one where our cellar block is. Then we own the original church block, which is very historic here, and that's only about 600 metres from the cellar block. And then we own another one over at Blewett Springs, which is about 6 kilometres away from where our tasting room is, a little higher in altitude, so another one there. So all up across the 3, it's about, I think in acres, not hectares, it's about 100 acres. Yeah.
Question. Why we have the black sheep?
Oh, that's right. On our logo is the black sheep. Well, okay. You like stories?
I love stories. Tell us why you have the black sheep.
So if you visit our tasting room, as you come up the stairs, there will be a black sheep on the stairs. And this is sort of a little representation really of a family characteristic that runs through all the generations, because we are 6 generations into the wine business, and my father Hugh is a real black sheep of his generation.
Why?
The one who was very unlike the rest of his brothers and sisters, who was much more just the more rebellious, didn't conform, didn't want to play the game the same as other people.
Like you, Mary?
I do express my black sheepisms in some other ways, yes. This also has come out in this generation as well. And we have our forebears who were also black sheep. So my great-great-great-grandfather, who planted the first grapevines in South Australia, he was a real black sheep. So he staked his whole life on coming out to this colony called South Australia before it was even a state, and left England with nothing but just this land that he had bought sight unseen. And he planted these first grapes out here, and we think he had a secret. And his secret, we think, is that he was probably smuggling some contraband Bordeaux across the English Channel. So yeah, he's a man with some secrets, and I think he was a bit of a black sheep character too. So it's very much a character trait. And it doesn't mean that, you know, we're villains. It just means that we don't necessarily feel like we have to follow anybody. We like doing things our own way.
And that's why we have a Sapporavi in Australia here, and one of the very good Sapporavi. Tell us the story about planting Sapporavi in McLaren Vale.
Oh, look, if you haven't tried Sapporavi, you must, because it's probably the most enigmatic grape variety you can imagine. Very unusual in Australia to grow it. I love it because it's got so much history and colourful past. You know, this is the world's oldest grape variety, which is incredible. You know, you think about where Sapporavi started. It started in Georgia and it started 8,000 years ago. And this is an incredibly large number if you think about 8,000 years ago. This is way before Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah. This is a long, long time ago. And to think about the Georgians were... wine is one of the civilizing elements of mankind. You have to stop and plant things and be patient and wait for grapevines. And to think that these people were planting Sapporavi, growing it and making wine out of it is quite incredible. And the thing that totally blows my mind is that we're here in McLaren Vale and the DNA of the Sapporavi here where we are, just there and on our other block over there, it's the same DNA as 8,000 years ago. You know, when life was just nothing that we can imagine. It's quite a magical thing. So where did it come from? My father, Hugh, met a Georgian winemaker who came to Adelaide because he wanted to bring his family away from Georgia because of the tensions with Russia. And no one knew anything about Georgia as a winemaking country. So he was finding it hard to get a job, probably in Adelaide. And my dad gave him a start. They met. My dad employed him, did it with another family. And then his tales of Georgia and the tales of Sapporavi, this indigenous grape variety, my dad was hooked. He was enchanted. So he said, why don't we plant some on our original church block? And really, he says that if you'd done the homework, he just should never have done it because it was a crazy thing to do. If you think about where Georgia is on the Caucasus Mountains, planting Sapporavi in McLaren Vale is about as far as you can get from there. Everything should say that it should fail. Yeah. And yet it hasn't. It's been magnificent here. And, you know, now we proudly put our oddball, we call it the oddball because it's odd. Yeah, it's very odd wine. We put that against Sapporavis against the world and it looks magnificent. They're different, magnificent, and it's a beautiful variety. And we can talk more about why it's so beautiful in a minute if you want.
Do you make in the same way they do that? How do you make the Sapporavi here? Was more fresh, fruity?
Yeah, look, here there's much more sunshine in Australian grapes than in Europe. And so it does have more of a forward fruit profile. But it's really different to Shiraz or Cabernet Sauvignon. You know, it's got a lot of spice, but it's not spice in the same as the grape varieties we're more used to here. I think of it as being more Indian spice, incense and cardamom. You know, they're the kinds of flavours we get out of it. A lot of cassis as well. But one of its remarkable characteristics is that it's very black in colour because it's one of the only grape varieties in the world where the skin is black, very, very high concentration of colour in the skin, but so is the flesh. And if you ever open up a red wine grape, you'll notice that the flesh is always clear. It's white, not with Sapporavi, it's red. So it produces a very black wine. And the thing that keeps this bigness refreshing is that Sapporavi has a beautiful natural acidity. And I've looked at Sapporavis from all over the planet and they all have this same characteristic. Great colour, very black, and great acidity. So you can make quite a big wine, but it's still fresh. And that's a lovely characteristic with this exotic spice box.
Oh, yes, it looks delicious. How much do you sell here in Australia, your wine? Do you have a Sapporavi overseas?
Well, you know, our business is a little bit different. We're a bit black sheep about how we sell our wine. So we were one of the first wineries in Australia who concentrated on selling direct to customers. And our wine club, called the Black Sheep Club, is the main way that we sell wine. So our wine club, I like to think, is one of the best in the country because we put all of our heart and soul into it. And so it's our primary way of selling. We will not sell to the grocery chains on principle. We don't like to do that. Yep. We like to reserve our best wines for our club members. We like to give them our best service. And we don't really enjoy what the grocery chains do to wine brands and to small producers. So we've got a bit of a black sheep approach to distribution. So most of our wine is sold here in Australia direct to our customers.
So you have a little bit overseas. Can you find your wines in America or anywhere else?
Yeah, we do. We do sell some wine we sell a little bit in a lot of countries. And, you know, they just pick what they think will work best for their market. So I'm just trying to think. We have this fabulous different wine called Black Ops. And it came about because my dad, being this passionate Sapporavi lover, he had this idea after he started growing it for a few vintages. He thought, you know, I've got this hunch. I think if you blended Sapporavi with Shiraz, that might make a really cool wine. And it was just a hunch. He just had it in his mind for a long time before he did it. And then one vintage, unbeknownst to me and anybody else, he started experimenting in one corner of the winery with Sapporavi and Shiraz. Wow. And then in 2010, he came out with this bottle and he said, here, try this. And it was magnificent. And so I christened it Black Ops. Because it was his black operation, his covert kind of operation that occurred in a dark corner of the winery that nobody knew about. And then he produces this amazingly tasty wine, and we put it on the market and people loved it because it was rich and luscious, but it had this X factor that no one could kind of put their finger on because they hadn't tried Sapporavi and they didn't know what was this flavour that is making this Shiraz taste quite different. So it has been a runaway success since then, and I think we're in our 11th vintage since then of it.
Shiraz and Sapporavi.
Yeah, and I think it might be the only one in the world.
Wow. Wow, that's very nice. So your family is just so much involved with wine for all your life, it seems like. So do you have how is your first memory relevant to the wine and in your story, Mary?
Well, you know, because it's 6 generations, wine has been the one thing that has always been there. It was always in the backdrop. And, you know, for me, it wasn't that special because it was just part of life. So when I was little, I used to knock around with my dad on the weekends, and I would have to, you know, come down to the winery with him, and the aroma of the winery is forever in my smell memory, in my brain. You know, the moment I walk in there, I kind of feel transformed back to being sort of 5 years old again. Yeah. And so probably my first memory of smelling wine would have been around the age of 7 that I can remember. And so,
how old you were in the first time you drink wine? Was 7 years old or just a smell? Tell us the truth.
Shall I tell you the truth?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. This is probably illegal. I'll tell you how a weekend used to work. Dad would be working in the cellar door. I would be bored. Yeah. So this is back in the 70s and early 80s. He had an old Kingswood ute, which back in the 80s there was no such thing as power steering. It was very big and clunky, and I would take 3 cushions off the couch and I would put them on the driver's seat of the ute and I would go off driving at the age of 7 in the Kingswood ute. I would go round the vineyards because it wasn't on the main roads, and so I would just sort of do laps of the vineyards in this. Sometimes get it bogged, of course, in winter in the clay. And then at the end of the day, you know, so I'd horse my way around the day doing this, and then at the end of the day, what I love nothing more was that my reward would be, and my dad would let me do this, the tasting glasses were nothing like they are now. You know, now we have these beautiful, big, elegant, fine stemware, but they used to be just these tiny, like little shot glasses.
Yes.
So I would line 13 of them up. 13? Because we were making 13 different wines at that stage. And I would pour a little bit out of each bottle, one into 13 different glasses. And then my reward would be that I would smell and taste each one.
How old were you?
I was 7.
7. Oh, no, my God.
And you know, the wines back then, some of them are the same as what we make now. There was Shiraz, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, all of that. But my favourites, we used to, for some reason back then, we used to make quite a large selection of different European white-styled wines. So Riesling, Auslese, beer and Auslese, all of these things you never see now. Well, I can tell you what, they were my favourites because they were sweet. I loved those wines.
So you probably have the most great palate after drinking since you were 7 years old, right? So your palate will be incredible.
Well, I've had a bit of practice, let's put it that way.
Do you believe in a perfect variety? I know we talk a lot about Sapporavi, but do you have any passion for another variety?
Well, you know, that's a little bit like asking me which of my 2 children who you saw just before is my favourite. That's a bit hard, you know. It depends on the day a bit, doesn't it? Sometimes I have a favourite out of those 2.
Talking about the wine, you have actually very nice the sparkling in the honor of your daughter, it's the drama queen.
That's right. We've got a sparkling. It's made in the true method traditionnel or method champenoise style, and which suits, and it's named after Stella because she's a complete drama queen, popped out into the world as a drama queen, displays that characteristic on almost a daily basis. I had it this morning as I dropped her off this morning somewhere a bit late. She was incensed with me, and you know, it's also very luxurious because it's made like champagne, and Stella is also likes nothing more than 5 stars, so it totally fits her. So most of our wines are named after, you know, family members or friends, black sheep characters.
Do you have a cellar in your home?
Look, at the moment, I think that would be a way too posh way of putting it because I'm in the middle of building a house, and so I've moved every year for the last year for about 3 years, and so I have what would we say? I have kind of like a bunch of boxes. And I have a pallet or 2 out in our cellar here at work with all of my bits and pieces in it. So I have the makings of a cellar, and I am building a lovely wine room.
Which one is the most expensive one in your cellar? Is Australian wine?
Well, you know, I don't even really think of it in that way. I mean, I'd like to be able to sort of completely fox you and say it's a $5 wine that's the most expensive because I don't necessarily think quality and cost always go hand in hand. Yeah. I do have some passions. You know, I love some of the overseas wine, but, you know, and I love Barolo and I love stuff like that. And I do have some of them stuffed away, which I hope to find, and again, before too long. And I love really good champagne, vintage champagne. So I do have some nice little treasures, but you know, I think you should just be open-minded and not necessarily totally price-driven. However, let's be honest, you can't afford to do really good oak on really cheap wines. You can't afford to mature things unless I think you've got to be in the game, you've got to be paying at least $30 to have quality. Yeah. So, you know, I'm fishing above 30.
So, question. If you're someone drinking your wine overseas or here in Australia, but he's very famous person, and then paparazzi or magazine take a picture and publish, and then this will be published for everyone to see. Do you imagine anyone would you like to see drinking your wine and it be published their face drink your wines, your wine in there? Do you have any person in your mind, any VIP or any famous?
Well, I think that would have to be someone who's a black sheep, don't you?
Yes,
exactly.
That
would be very appropriate. Who can we think of that are complete black sheep? We've lost Dennis Hopper. He's dead. I don't know. We'll have to think of who are the reprobates and the renegades and the rascals and the villains who are famous. we need to find some good black sheep to be that. Yeah.
Do you have anyone in your mind?
I don't, but I might come back to it. You know, I might like to go back into history and dig someone up out of the grave for that job, I think. An old celebrity.
When you were very little, what do you want to be when you grow?
Well, I always loved dressing up. That was a real passion of mine when I was little. And so I was an only child for the first 14 years of my life. And so I had to and I lived somewhere quite isolated. So I had a lot of time on my hands to get to know myself. And I loved having a dress-up box and lots of things to adorn. And so I guess I had this idea of just being sort of like this independently wealthy woman of style. That was probably my biggest ambition when I was little. And I'm not quite sure that was defined by a particular occupation. I think that was just defined by nice stuff, and kind of living a good life. And as I got older, I sort of used to love going through the pages of gorgeous Vogue magazines and pulling out the beautiful ads and the lovely photo shoots. So that became a passion. And so I decided when I was my teenage years that I wanted to get into advertising, because I wanted to make the beautiful ads. And so I did my work experience at an advertising agency, and the moment I left school, all I wanted to do was work for an ad agency. I had to go and get a university degree along the way because by that stage it had got quite competitive, and so getting in at the ground level with no experience wasn't going to work anymore. So I went and did a whole Bachelor of Business and Marketing first to be able to get a job in an ad agency, and then I flew to Sydney and I gave myself a week to door knock around Sydney to get myself a job in an agency. And somebody said, all right, I'll give you a foot in the door. You will be paid basically nothing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you'll be paid basically nothing.
And what your dad told you about that? He was okay?
Yeah, he
was like, daughter, stay here in the wine industry, don't go away.
Oh, no. He felt quite differently to that. He thought it was good that his kids make their own life and their own luck. So he never put any pressure on me to be in the wine industry at all. So off I went, and a guy said, okay, I'll give you a foot in the door. This is your start. And the very funny thing was that it was a very fancy agency in North Sydney overlooking the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And he gave me the office next door to his, huge, because the chairman of the whole agency was overseas. And he said, I'm going to park you in there. You're going to be the researcher. What he paid me didn't even pay for the mattress I had on the floor to kind of survive in Sydney for a couple of weeks. He paid me nothing. But everybody in the agency thought that I was some sort of celebrity advertising guru because I'm in the biggest office in the whole building overlooking the harbour. And so they were all coming to me for advice and saying, Mary, what do you think of this ad campaign? What do you think about this pitch? And I'm thinking,
it's so important.
Oh, look,
money, you didn't have it, but important, you
optics,
are.
Everything, hey? Nothing like good packaging to sell the product.
So how many glasses or bottle of wine I needed to get you drunk, Mary? Tell us the truth.
I am blessed, I have to tell you. I shouldn't brag about it because it's really not something to brag about. I am blessed with a very good liver. My body does seem to like alcohol, which is very fortunate for me in my career.
2, 3, 4 bottles?
It can be done.
How many drama queen you can have it?
Get me at a party and it's hard to find the off switch.
And what do you do next day for recover? Coffee?
Hopefully before I get out of bed, 2 ibuprofen, Hydrolite, followed by a big oily, tomatoey lasagna.
Delicious.
That's a treat. Always works.
So, completes the sentence. A table without wine is like...
Oh, it's not a table, is it?
No.
It's just not. It doesn't have legs or anything. It's just not a table.
How was the 2021 vintage? Tell us. Was amazing?
Do you know, people in the wine industry always tell you that every vintage, oh, fantastic, excellent, it was the best vintage we ever had.
That's why I did the question the right person, because I know you'll tell them the truth.
Oh, so you never want to share that there's a wipeout vintage. Fortunately, being in McLaren Vale, you don't get too many of them, so you don't have to be Pinocchio too often and stretch the truth. But 2021 really was absolutely outstanding, and I can actually put the backup behind this rather than just kind of like spinning the yarns. The reason it was so fantastic was that we had a really long, slow ripening period without heat waves.
Was it mild weather?
Mild, gentle. We'd had enough rain. There was a little bit of rain, I think, in January. That could have got a bit tricky, but it didn't, because that can split the fruit, but it didn't happen. So everything is very much more comfortable, not only for the grapes, but also it means that there's no panics in the district if you get a lot of heat. Everyone wants to get their grapes off in a rush and that kind of thing. That didn't happen. So lots of great flavour development. So I think the 2021 wines out of McLaren Vale will be ones to watch. I'm really enthusiastic about getting them onto the market. I think that they'll be delicious wines to drink, great to collect, that sort of stuff.
I tried the Pinot Grigio. It was delicious.
Pinot Grigio is good, isn't it?
Oh my God, 2021.
Yeah.
Very aromatic and amazing.
Yeah, I like to pick that variety a little bit on the earlier side so it keeps lots of zesty acidity. That is one of our best sellers, actually, that wine, because, if you're a bit sort of tired of some of the more aromatic white varieties, Pinot Grigio is fresh, it's crisp, goes with everything, easy to pair with foods. You can drink it on its own. It's just, you almost can't go wrong with something like our Trickster Pinot Grigio, which is why it's always in probably the top 3 wines that we sell in the cellar door for sure, and online.
Yeah, that's good. It was delicious. Love it. What do you think the people you're drinking in the future? So you have climate change in Australia is something. So you think people will keep drinking a lot of whites, sparkling, reds, fortified? What do you think the consumers will drink in the future?
Such an interesting one, isn't it? Because you sort of think, oh, how many years are you casting your mind into the future? Like 100 years, 1,000? Everything technology has had such a huge impact on our life. Will it change winemaking? I don't know that it will, because if you think about those Georgians 8,000 years ago growing Sapporavi and making it, not much has changed. In 8,000 years, we still grow the grapes. They've got to be planted in the soil somewhere, so they've got to speak to their time and their place, but we still harvest them. And the science and art of winemaking has been the same the whole way through. We've got a bit more modern technology to keep that process more sterile, clean, purified. But generally, the process is the same. So I think it's one of those industries that will not be shaken up enormously to the core by technology. There'll be improvements like there have been with beautiful harvesters now that do a lot of the sorting of fruit and that keeps the fruit really pristine. But generally, everything is still the same because wine is amazing like that. You have to be patient when you put vines in the ground because you've got to allow at least 3 to 5 years for them to mature. So you have to stand still. You really have to be tolerant to Mother Nature and what she gives you, because sometimes she can be brutal, sometimes she can be kind. So I think those things aren't going to change. There may well be some more heat that we have to deal with. Look back when my great-great-great-grandfather, my great-grandfather and my great-grandfather were planting and making wine, it was fortifieds because Australia was too hot to make delicate red and white wines.
Yes.
Will we be going back to that? We'll have a few more headaches if we do, but we'll see. Let's see. Maybe humans will fix the planet before then.
Yeah, I hope so. So let's play a game. Are you ready?
What kind of game? What are we in for?
So the game is, I tell you the famous person. I promise it's famous, so you know who they are. And you need matching wine or grape. And then tell us why.
Okay, all right. I'm up for it.
Let's start with someone like Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, what an interesting character he is. I think he actually could be my black sheep date for the night.
That's so true.
He's a little boy.
Quite a different person around the world.
Yeah, he's a black sheep, isn't he?
Yeah,
not sure if it's for all the right reasons. Okay, so Michael Jackson, hyper talented little boy who never wanted to grow up. I think he is going to be our Chardonnay, the scallywag.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, because he's a little boy who didn't ever want to grow up. So he's still a little scallywag. He's kind of like builds his own little kind of never land. I think he's the Peter Pan of the flock. So he's the scallywag.
Madonna.
Oh, I love Madonna. I love her reinvention of herself.
So picking some of your wines to give to her?
Well, she's a bit of a black operation, isn't she? Black ops, I think, would suit Madonna because, you know, she goes back into her little cave and reinvents herself and comes back out, and she's unpredictable and off the grid. She's black ops. Yeah.
She's black ops. And if you talking someone like very relaxed, like Bobby Marley.
Bob Marley. I like the reggae vibe. Bob, who's he going to be? What have we got for Bob?
Do you think any 45 he'll like it?
You know who I think Bob is? He's the Moocher.
Moocher.
Which is our Mataro. Bob is the Moocher. He likes to just he's a bit loose. He's in no hurry. The reason we call the Mataro the Moocher is because Mataro is the last thing we pick. It hangs out on the vines as long as it can. It's in no hurry to go anywhere. Just a little... Oh, is that the time?
I think that's the best match ever. Bobby Marley with Madonna.
He's the Moocher. El Moocher Marley.
Politicians. So,
oh boy, here we go. I'm sure I've got some characters for them. All right, let's get going.
The Queen.
The Queen. Oh, it's too obvious, isn't it? It's a bit of a cliche. I think we have to give her the drama queen, don't we? She keeps her dramas quite well hidden. God knows she's got enough of them.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Nelson Mandela?
Nelson Mandela. What are we going to give him? I think he deserves something.
He's strong. He's quite a strong man.
He deserves something impressive, doesn't he?
Yes.
Do you know what our top wine is called?
Tell us.
Pure Black.
Wow.
I'm giving that to him. He deserves that. That's the best of the best.
Yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
So right. So I'm South America lady, so I need to play the game with some South America person. Okay. Maradona, soccer, foot. Yeah. Do you like soccer?
I go and watch my son on very cold mornings in the Adelaide Hills with thermal underwear on. I like it that much.
Which one do you match with for Maradona?
Can I give him the oddball? That's the Sapporavi. Actually, you know, we have the Sapporavi, which is the oddball, and then we have the really, really top Sapporavi, which is called Oddball the Great, as in Peter the Great. I think Maradona, he deserves Oddball the Great because he is a great.
He's a great?
Not? Yeah.
I'm not sure because I'm Brazilian, you know. Brazilian and Argentina, we actually fighting a little bit.
It's a bit of a war there, isn't it, in terms of competition for the golden boot. I get that, but I think we got to pay Maradona. He's a great.
Yeah, he is. So, did you enjoy your interview?
I loved it. I love talking to you.
Give us a vote from 1 to 10.
Oh, can you get 11?
Yes, I like it, that. That was... Thank you so much, Mary. Would you like to remind us how to reach your cellar door? Would you like just to share the address?
Yeah, well, the best thing you can do is come here because I think we've got the best staff in the whole of McLaren Vale, if not the state. They are awesome. Have a check of our TripAdvisor and you'll know that I'm not lying to you because, again, people always like to exaggerate a little, but in this instance, I am not. So come down and see us, which you can do by getting out of Adelaide Airport, heading your car south, driving for 40 minutes, and you come through the township of McLaren Vale and up our beautiful pine driveway, and here you are in this glass rotunda with almost 360-degree views. It is one of the best views in the region. If you can't do that, jump online because we are great online as well. So it's www.hughhamiltonwines.com.au and check out our wine experiences in a box. They are unlike anything you've ever experienced. You almost don't need to come to the cellar door if you buy one of them.
Yeah, that's so good. And Wine Club, we'll join the Wine Club.
The Black Sheep Club. Join the Black Sheep Club. You come behind the scenes, come and do shearing the vines where you hand harvest, bottle your own barrel, and then come and enjoy one of our beautiful lunches. We go every state in Australia to host a lunch with our members. It's fantastic fun.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Mary, for today, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thanks so much for coming and visiting me. It was such a delight.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack Australia. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.